I'm a paranormal investigator with Shadow Hunters, and tonight's guest is Dale Kaczmarek, founder of the Ghost Research Society of Chicago, from Oakland, Illinois, and we have him on tonight to give you guys a real good example of what it's like to go ahead and be involved with the other end of the ghost hunting, as far as the research and the development and the keeping of all the logs and the records and all that. And it's quite a wild ride. So what we're going to do first is any donations or anything that come our way will all go to Lost Limbs Foundation. And introduction would be that Dale's a lecturer, spirit photographer, does a lot of books on spirit photography. He's a para instructor, and he's the author. And tonight we're going to go over a few things pertaining to Mr. Kaczmarek and Ghost Research Society. And probably one of the first things to do is say, hi, Dale, how are you?
Greg, how you doing, Greg? I'm just doing fine.
Okay, that's awesome. When we went ahead and got together the first time, we sort of hit on some of the topics and talked about a few things. What's really interesting about this at this period of time is you seem to be crossing over to quite another plateau in your career. And if you could go ahead and describe that for everybody and let everybody know what you're going to be doing down the road here.
First of all, I thought you were telling me to actually cross over.
No, I don't want you to do that, Dale.
No,
I can't do that tonight.
For the longest time, as you know, I've been in charge of this group ever since 1977 is when this group started as the Ghost Trackers Club. Back in 1982, I worked as 5 years as a research assistant. And later in 1982, my friend Martin B. Ricardo, who was a co-founder of the group with me, that you may have met at the Spiritualist Church
Cicero.
In Cicero that we did a couple of years back.
Right.
And at that time, he decided to give me control of the group. We changed the name to Ghost Research Society, which is more indicative of what we do, ghost research. And from that time, in fact, even beyond that, I've had literally thousands of people come through this group since the 1970s. And for the most part, what I've done is I've trained these people in various aspects of the paranormal, from ghost hunting techniques, working with equipment, spirit photography, how to gather evidence, how to, tell a place is haunted, and even go into, early history about the paranormal and how other people have approached the paranormal, long before I was even around. So I decided that since I've been training people for all these years, basically through the group, I came up with this idea that I wanted to give it a shot to start to come up with some classes that we can do online for anybody who wanted to, either people who were just starting out, who had never been involved with paranormal, people that are kind of like, intermediaries and kind of like in between that are not, real, I don't call them experts, but people that have been doing it a lot. And even for the seasoned investigator, ways that you can maybe tighten up your investigating, maybe learn some things from me in the course of my 45 years in the paranormal field. And so I came up with this idea of putting together pretty much an 8-week course. I'm not sure what it's going to be titled yet. I'm not going to call it Paranormal 101 or Ghost Hunting 101 because people have, kind of really, use that name over and over again. I'm going to try to make it a little bit different because, what I hope to do is to, within the next few weeks, start on this program. And the idea with the program is being that it can be an entire course. It can be an 8-week course. And it may even be closer to 10 weeks, actually, when I look at certain aspects of what I'll be looking into, including working with equipment, spirit photography, and EVP, which are the three main focuses, as you know, on the paranormal field. And those three alone might be longer than 1 week. There might have to be 2 weeks for each of those particular segments. So it could be as many. As few as 8, maybe as many as 12 week course before I come down to it. So the idea that I had was to literally have somebody film me or film myself in some aspects and begin to just talk about certain aspects of the paranormal. I already have a syllabus together of what I wanted to discuss and put together. And so the idea would be to, if somebody, for instance, purchased the entire 8-10 week course, whatever it may be, they would start off, on a weekly basis, getting into a Zoom session. And the first thing they would see was my big fat head, pretty much on the screen, talking a little bit, just kind of introducing each segment. And at that point, I would insert like about an hour or so video have me talking about that particular aspect. So then each person that gets this down the line is going to have the exact same course. It's not going to be me kind of ad-libbing along the way. It'll be the same exact course, the same exact content on each aspect of the course. So we would do that, and then at the end of that segment, at the end of the video, if you will, I would then come back on and then allow people to just drill me with questions, about that particular aspect. And of course, there's going to be 8 weeks down the line, so I would always just tell people just to kind of stay on course, pretty much. So if we're talking, say, about early investigators, let's stay on that. If we get to EVP, let's talk about EVP. And of course, at the end of the course, if people still have outstanding questions, they can talk pretty much about anything they want. And then what I was hoping to do at that point is to, obviously have some sort of, besides interaction here on, the Zoom thing, but also to have possibly people to have almost like experiments that they can try with a piece of equipment, with a digital recorder, with a digital camera, with a night shot camera, and then kind of, tell them, kind of something, an idea to do, maybe in their neck of the woods. I mean, it's obviously just not going to be Chicago. This would be around the country, maybe around the world. And they could then come out and do a little mini investigation, and then get back to me during that course, and then report what they have accomplished using that. And then, of course, then at that point I could interject ways that they can better, in the future, maybe get a better opportunity to get something paranormal. And of course, at the end of the course, I thought it would be an interesting idea. And I think it would be a must that everybody would get a certificate of completion of some kind, signed by me. If you can, suitable for framing, if you will. You can post it up if you want, or whatever you want to do with it. And it would be kind of like the thing I don't want to get into is saying that I'm certifying people. Okay, I've heard that term a lot in the paranormal. Where people are certified ghost hunters now, or certified paranormal investigators. And that always kind of troubled me because, I mean, if somebody is certifying somebody, well, who certified you? And who certified you? And so forth down the line. I'm not an expert in the field. I don't think there are any experts. I've said that over and over again. If you've seen me on any of the talk shows I've been on, I don't say that there are such things as people being experts in the field. I believe that there are people that, the way I like to put it, they have kind of more whiskers, so to speak. They've been around the block a little bit longer. They've been involved with their group or multiple groups, or maybe on a solo basis, and they have a tremendous wealth of knowledge. So when I'm issuing these certificates, I'm just saying that you completed the course satisfactorily, and that you have the knowledge, I believe, I would hope, the knowledge at that point to begin to properly go out and to investigate the paranormal. Now, I want to make something very clear. My course is by far not the only way to investigate. Okay, I'm not going to say that if you don't take my course, you're not a ghost hunter and ghost investigator. If you've read my books, if you've been, and you know yourself, Greg, you've been with the group for several years now. Basically, I always say, and I invite other groups with us sometimes. We network all the time with other groups. Sometimes they may be exactly how we do it, sometimes a little bit different how we do it, and sometimes totally different how we do it. But I don't, slam anybody for being that way.
Right.
That's the diversity of the paranormal, is people having their own ideas about things. And so when I teach this course, what I'm hoping to accomplish for people taking the course is for people to have a better understanding on each aspect of the paranormal, and be able to use the techniques, the protocols, the methodologies that we have used in our group for decades now, that seem to work well for us, that seem to get to yield good results. Now, again, you can get results doing all different things. I mean, if you want to be a TV ghost hunter and you want to go out and provoke the hell out of something, I mean, you might get something out doing it that way.
Not a good idea.
You might do it through other methods. I mean, there are so many different ways that you can do that. So my biggest thing is to literally put it out there. And, obviously it's going to be a lot of time and effort on my part to get this put together. I hope to have it, hopefully have it done by, sometime in January, so I can begin to offer this. And again, what I'm trying to do as well is you can take the entire course, or you can take any specific part of the course. So say, for instance, you're only interested in EVPs, or you're only interested in spirit photography. You can take that particular course only, and, you may want to fine tune your methods. Maybe you want to get a different aspect of the paranormal, and maybe look at it from a different standpoint. I mean, because I've been doing it for many, many years, and I've seen, as you might imagine, Greg, so many groups come through the paranormal. Many years ago, I tried to put a directory together of paranormal groups across the internet. It's impossible to do, as you know. Some are fly by night, and that's not a denigration of a group. I mean, they for some reason they just started a group. They never got together. They never got the impetus to continue the group, and it just kind of fell by the wayside. Other groups have changed the names, have changed their websites, and so it's impossible to keep track of that. And when I started out back in 1975, actually, even before I started with the group in 77, there weren't that many groups around the United States. I mean, well-established groups. I mean, of course, you had the J.B. Wright Institute, you had the American Society for Psychic Research, you had the British Society for Psychic Research, you had the Edgar Cayce Foundation, you had the there was a parapsychology class and group in California that a number of very well-known investigators came out of, including Lloyd Auerbach and Carrie Gaynor, and I may be forgetting a few, and I apologize about that. But generally speaking, besides these big groups that were out there and had been out there since the 1880s, there weren't a lot of really smaller groups of individuals or groups that people that came together to run this group, to run a group. And so when we started back in 1977, at that point, we were the only group in the whole Midwest that was devoted to the paranormal. I try to keep abreast of all the different groups that came and went throughout these years. But back then, in fact, if you know, in Chicago, there was only one other person doing similar things that I was, and that was Richard Crow. So that's why I feel I'm very uniquely qualified to teach a course like this, to allow people to learn from me, learn the mistakes that I made too, because I will tell you right off the bat, I made mistakes too. I'm not infallible, but I learned from my mistakes. And that's the thing that people have to realize and to get over. You can make a mistake. Just admit you made a mistake. Just move on. It's no big thing. It's not going to put a black mark on your back or anything like that. That's how we learn. And when I was learning from other people, and like Martin Ricardo and other people, they really kind of pushed me into this paranormal field that I'm in right now. I went to conferences, lectures, workshops. I mean, you name it, all over the country. And I would be sitting in the audience sometimes as a visitor, as a paid person that was just bought a ticket for one of these events, and would watch these paranormal investigators up there, talking on the stage about how they did this or how they did that. I'm going, wow, why didn't I think about that? So there's always new ideas, and there's always new protocols. There's always new methodologies, and that's why even some of the books that I have out right now are a little bit dated, I will admit. And in fact, I hope to be doing updates on the spirit photography book and on the ghost hunting techniques books in the next few months. So maybe after I finished pretty much this course, I would suggest those that take the course. In fact, what I'm hoping to do is if you take the entire course, I would include the 2 books on spirit photography and ghost hunting techniques as reading material. For you to read. I might say, okay, we're talking about EVP, so read this chapter on EVP, and then before you come back and see the next segment, which is the next week, and talk about EVP, so you kind of have a general understanding of what we're talking about. So I talked for a long time, so
I know, that's okay.
For just a second, but I mean, this is kind of what I had envisioned for the longest time. I wanted to do this actually in the guise of going out to, say, a college to teach courses. But unfortunately, not so much in this day and age because of COVID, but even before then. I've been to a lot of college courses that taught parapsychology or ghost hunting or ghost travels or ghost explorations, what do you want to call it. And some were good, some were terrible, some were okay. But again, I'm not damning those people for that. They did the best they could, okay? Maybe they didn't have, I won't say the expertise to do that, or maybe the experience or longevity as I did and other people in the field. So maybe that's perhaps why their presentation was a little bit lacking. But, I learned a lot from other people and learned, kind of a do's and don'ts about what not to do and what to do when you want to set up a program like this to try to answer every conceivable question there could be. And as you know, I mean, there could be a lot of conceivable questions. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much what I'm hoping to do here in the next few months.
That's really awesome. And what's really important about tonight is to share this with everybody up here in this neck of the woods in southeast Wisconsin. And we got people that are listening in from Madison and places like that are all members of different groups that I belong to. And it's essential to go ahead and hear it from a person like yourself who does have all that background, that's been there, done that, and has the books to support it, and the research, and the amount of research that you do have. That a lot of people, they have no idea what you've got, Dale. And it's like 3 libraries strong. Now, the one thing that I wanted to ask you about when you're doing the courses, you're not going to hand out our secret handshake to all these people, are you?
No, that's all going to be top secret stuff.
Okay.
Hopefully, what I'm going to want to do is give, and you might be surprised when you take the course that a lot of this stuff, especially if you're not new to the field, is going to sound like, oh, it's the same old thing. But we do it in a slightly different way. I mean, we use a lot of different specialized equipment. As you know, I have at last count over $14,000 worth of paranormal gear, and it's constantly adding on as we go. If I find something new and interesting, I like to try it out. So that's why I was saying some of those books that I wrote are kind of dated, because they don't even have this new paranormal gear that's coming out there. When I started out with a tape recorder, a cassette tape recorder, a 35 millimeter camera, and my EMF meter was a compass.
Yeah.
And that was it. Then later on, things like, Dr. Gauss and K2s and cell sensors and ELF zone meters and things of that later came on. And then we got into mel meters and trifields and so forth and so on. And, it's hard to keep track of the new equipment. I try to do my best when I see something. I either research it or I try to buy it whenever I can. And some of them can be pretty expensive. But I think with some of the equipment, and Greg, you've been with the group for a while, we've gotten some pretty amazing results from some of the equipment that we've used.
Right.
And that's what I hope to bring into this course too, is not so much what to avoid. I hate to give anybody a bad rap for a piece of equipment, but I've been through this. I've seen how certain equipment can be used, and some that is not so great in the paranormal field. So I'd be more focused on what you should try, what you should perhaps go out and purchase, within your limited budget that you might have. A lot of people don't have the budget that I have, and can go around, year round like I do, because I'm retired, and go, gallivanting all over the country. So you might be limited in that, but I think by showing what we use, and then the great thing is in this is going to be a real novel part, I think, of this course, is give you an example. We're going to be using, say, a piece of equipment. It could be a structured light sensor camera. It could be an eddy meter. It could be anything like that, right? And then I'll be talking about that, and then we'll be cutting away and actually showing us in the field using this piece of equipment and what results we got with it. So then people can say, oh, okay, great. This is how it's used in the field. This is what other people may have gotten from it. So I think that's going to be really great. You're actually going to be seeing us doing actual investigations in the field. So you might, I'm sure you and many other people from the group, as well as maybe people that we network with, are going to find themselves. In there, of course, I'll have to get a lot of permission slips from people to make sure that it's okay to use their facsimile in their face in there, but I'm sure it won't be a problem. But it'll again show people how we use it in the field and what kind of results we got, and then go back to what I'm talking about. Talk about the next piece and so forth and so on. So I think that's going to be I think an integral part of that course.
I know with things, for instance, like the difference with all the EMF machines that are available on the market, and you go ahead and you bring into play the ones that aren't EMF, they're electrostatic energy. And we brought that up with the fact that, you've got all these EMF meters, and then you've got probably about 6 pieces of equipment that are electrostatic. And to tell people the difference of where you can pick up so much interference with the EMF, but it takes a lot for the other machine that's electrostatic, because that's the same energy you produce when you rub your feet across the carpet and it's dry. So when they light that up, that's pure. That's like a pure response, or the sensor's picking up a real type of energy that you couldn't pick up with the other machine. And that's something I know that we've talked about, and we talked about the Eddy machine, the Eddy Plus. And for the years that I've had that machine, and we've used it, for all those years, all that time, it was supposed to have that card that you could put in the top, one of the SD cards. And then it was a mini, and it would record all those different types of sensors that were on the machine, from humidity and barometric pressure and temperature.
It would give you a graph.
It would give you a whole printout of all those different types, and then you could hit a button and you could key it on when you were picking up on some activity. Absolutely. So you could see what the fluctuations were between that. And, there's a lot of people that don't know about those things. So that's why, it's great to have you on, because, and now here's the point, is we had talked a couple of days ago, and if you had to go ahead and pick 3 different types of equipment right now, 3 different machines that would be your favorites, what would they be?
For EMF, the tri-field natural EM meter. It's kind of hard 3, but I would say a very good full spectrum camera or full spectrum camcorder. That's also very high definition, either 1080p or 4K. And then some real-time communication device. Now, we use a lot. We use an app a lot called the Phasma Box. And as you know, you've heard of some. You've actually had your name called out on the Phasma Box several times, in full sentences, in direct response to things we were saying. And people can go to the website and actually see some of that interaction with the Phasma Box and so forth. So, I think a real-time device is a great thing to have, whether it be a ghost box or it can be a mini portal. It could be a Phasma Box. It could be something similar like that. Even an obelisk, for instance, which we use quite a bit. It has different modes. It has a phonetic mode where spirits are able to put together their own words using vowels and sentences and phonemes, and then something that they're using an internal database of words from the dictionary mode. And getting back to that first choice I made, the tri-field natural EM meter. As you mentioned, there are so many different devices and so many different for EMF and for electrostatic and so forth. A lot of people may not realize this, but there are 5 or 6 different versions of the tri-field meter. There is the tri-field meter, there's a tri-field EM meter, there's a tri-field natural meter, and there's a tri-field natural EM meter. And then you have a tri-field 100EX meter. And then there's other variations of that as well. Now, what I will say, without going into too much, pounding on the heads of some of these paranormal teams on TV, a lot of them use this 100EX meter. And it's a simple fact, Greg. Check it out. Anybody can do it when they get off here. Read the specifications for that meter. That meter does pick up internal AC fields. So you can get a lot of false positives. The tri-field natural EM meter does not, and is not sensitive to internal AC fields. So you're ruling that off completely. You're ruling out a lot of natural stuff. You're ruling out a lot of electricity from computer screens, from electrical outlets, from wall switches, from conduit, from fluorescent lighting. All this is ruled out. So pretty much if that tri-field goes off, and as you know, it hardly ever goes off, and that's, I think, one of the reasons that these paranormal teams on TV don't use it, because it never goes off.
Right.
But if it does go off, then I think you got something. Then I think you really got to look at what set that meter off, because it's not set off by anything internally, geomagnetic, given from the earth, electric from the environment, from the house or wherever you're at, and it's not even from gamma rays or cosmic rays or solar flares. None of that sets that meter off. It's a very good meter. It's best used in a stationary mode rather than kind of walking around, because it goes off so much. Because what you're doing is when you're walking through with that meter, you're actually dragging that meter through the electromagnetic fields around you, and you're getting some false readings. So if you set that meter down, you wait for that needle to go down to zero, and then you watch for that thing to spike. And there's some very good examples of that. Go to the first Mansfield investigation. You will see that meter buried itself, completely buried itself on the 5th floor of Mansfield Reformatory, and no reason for that to happen at all. And that tri-field does not go off like that, hardly ever. I may have had that tri-field go off. I could probably count seriously less than 2 handfuls in the time that I've been using that meter. It's a great meter. It'll let you know if there's something that you should investigate further.
That's an awesome machine. And that's awesome equipment. And, when you think about the stuff that a lot of these pieces of equipment, and you think about photography too, and like you mentioned, the cameras, the full spectrum, IR, and high def. I think it's important for people when they get ready to go ahead and make a purchase like that to take all that stuff into consideration. And since you have the book on spirit photography, and you get 1,800 pictures that are sent to you on your email and letters and everything, and all our meetings, every time there's usually 1 or 2 that are brought up and that, were discussed. Have you seen anything this year that is really defined as being paranormal?
Yes. In fact, I have 2 images that I'm going to be posting up here in the next week or so. I got kind of sidetracked. I've had these for several months, and sometimes I do get backed up because of all the things we were doing this year, trying to catch up on investigations. But I have a very, very strange shadow image, shadow person that was captured. And I looked at it, and I looked at the parameters. And when people send me these pictures, I always ask them to send me all the information about what kind of camera they use, the lighting conditions, the temperature, whether it was outdoor or indoor, why you were taking the picture in the first place, anything about it. Did your meters go off? Did you just taking random pictures? And then I looked at all these different things, and I could not find an explanation of what this is caused. This was not a reflection or a shadow cast by somebody using bright flash, because there's no evidence of that. The other one is on a trail cam. And as you know, we do use trail cams on occasion. That can be, they're normally supposed to be used for, gaming, like for deers and bears and, whatever, to see what's, wandering your farm or your places that you're hunting or something like that. And they're set off by motion. They can either, start by snapping pictures, or they can snap video. However you have them set up. You can also use them in a handheld mode, by literally just, because there's no viewfinder, so you just kind of point it generally and you snap a picture. Well, I have a very interesting picture of a semi-transparent figure of a woman that was some of the reasons that I'm still waiting to post this up, so I'm trying to get more information about the picture so I can have all this ready when I post it. And apparently it was set off by the trail cam, but she's semi-transparent and she's not blurred. So that kind of rules out the possibility that, somebody some real person kind of moved into the picture, set it off, and, that's them. Because if that was the case, those trail cams, they flash this bright IR light that we cannot see with the naked eye. Even the animals can't sense it. Well, maybe the animals can because they have a sensitivity to light that we don't have. But when that flashes, it literally freezes everything for that second or two or whatever it is when that shutter is open. So there is no and should be no movement unless somebody's flying through there at the speed of light or something, and then you might get a little bit of a blur. But this one is a very interesting photograph, and I have those two that I'll be posting here that were taken, I believe, either this year or last year. And again, I've been kind of backed up. But as you know, I've been doing a lot of updating here recently to the site. I put a new slideshow up there recently. I also put some new things about some things that appeared on different podcasts that people can listen to if they want, and articles and so forth. And I'm going to be updating different sections of there as well. I'm still working on a whole page that I'm going to be putting together. And this is in lasting memory of my great friend Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who died in 2017, I believe. And I have just a tremendous amount of stuff that I want to put together on give her a whole page on my website about that and dedicate that to her longtime memory and being in the field for so many years. She was I've known her for more than 30 years myself.
She was great. I mean, I am very grateful I had the opportunity to meet her when we were at Gettysburg that one time and be in the field with her. And she had her husband with her. And we were at Iverson's Pits.
Yeah.
And then we were down in the
Triangular Field.
Triangular Field. How can I forget the Triangular Field?
Yeah.
Of all the places on the planet, I must be going through some sort of age thing where I'm starting to forget more than I remember. But that was some amazing time. It was just a beautiful night, and I know that you have a great feel about going back to Gettysburg.
Absolutely. We are looking at the possibility of probably going back there sometime in August of next year. So hopefully by August, COVID will be in control. You got to remember, we went this August and we just practiced social distancing. We wore masks. We didn't go into crowded locations. We didn't eat in restaurants. And we all came back perfectly healthy and safe. I would not, go to a location if I thought it was, dangerous for our group. As you know, I backed out of a few, unfortunately, this year that you invited me to because I just didn't feel, safe there. We had a great trip when we went down to Tennessee, down to Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Brushy Mountain. And that when we went there, that Marion County, I think, had one of the lowest death rates and contagion rates. I think there was only like 23 confirmed cases and 2 deaths in the whole county at that time. So I felt very safe to do stuff like that. And hopefully in August of maybe next year we can shoot back to Gettysburg. Greg, have you been there before? And I know you have. And you I'll be posting the news Gettysburg here as soon as I get the last couple of reports in from.
That's awesome. I think everybody will love to see that on the page, and because it's such a great place.
Well, the thing of the report that I'm going to be putting up here, this is by far the longest report I've ever done. I mean, I have 8.5 pages on just the history of Gettysburg.
Wow.
So places that we were at, the flow of battle and so forth. And since that time, I've come across so many other locations on the battlefield, and I can always steer people to the American Battlefield Trust, which is a non-for-profit organization that saves battlefields, both Civil War and Revolutionary War. And to go to their website, they have a tremendous amount of free YouTube videos that you can sit there and just watch. And these guys, you thought I was good. These guys put me to shame. Literally, they're professional guides. And they'll tell you that exactly right here where I'm standing, this is where this guy got killed, and this is where the battle went through, and this was the so-and-so. And the names and the history is just so incredible. And I've learned, at least a half a dozen locations that we want to hopefully be able to touch on when we go back there in August. In fact, if you remember, there was a triangular field, the Devil's Den, the Iverson's Pit. And then this year we added another one. We added Pickett's Charge in there as well.
Right.
And a lot of people with that and the little round top, they think that those were the two most, the two places on the battlefield that perhaps most people died. Well, actually, it's wrong. The most loss of life occurred in the wheat field and the peach orchard. And we never even touched on that.
Right.
And that's, again, some places that nobody wants to even go to. They want to hang out at Pickett's Charge or the Devil's Den because it's the most visited parts of the battlefield. So these other more obscure parts of the battlefield, they should be pretty much devoid of people at night, and we should be able to get some really good investigating done.
I hope so. That's for sure. And then as long as we were talking about investigations, if you're going to go ahead and come up with, say, once again, let's use that figure number 3, your 3 all-time investigations that you've done, what would they be?
Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia, and Lake Shawnee Amusement Park.
Wow. Now, why Lake Shawnee Amusement Park?
Well, Lake Shawnee Amusement Park, I don't know if you were with us or not. That is just an amazing location that has it's steeped in history with Native Americans. There was actually Native Americans actually buried on the property, and there were, we saw the pictures that were taken during archaeological digs out there. There was many documented cases of untimely death. The little boy that was drowned in the pool his foot got stuck in the drainage and he got sucked down under. The boy who drowned in the lake nearby, the Lake Shawnee itself. And then that I think it was a little girl, it could have been a little boy, I can't remember, that was crushed by the truck backing into her.
It was a little girl.
And those are 3 documented cases that we know of, and there probably were more. So I would seriously, love to go back there again one day, because that had been on my wish list for a long time, and for some reason, we just didn't investigate as much as we could have. I think we only went to 2 or 3 locations on that place, and there were so many others where these. If you remember, there was a ticket booth where people would walk into the ticket booth and they actually got physically pushed out of that ticket booth. And I walked in there, I didn't feel anything because I didn't go in at night. And, we investigated, I guess it was kind of like a carousel with the swings. And we investigated the bus area. There was actually 2 buses. There was the one that Gaylord had owned that was in the center of the field. We went to this, like the maze area where they had set it up for the kids to walk through around Halloween. And we got some crazy stuff there. We got our names called out. We got direct responses to questions asked. But there were so many others that we didn't even get a chance to investigate, like that creepy trail leading down to those 2 or 3 graves out there of people that were killed during that Indian massacre. We didn't even go to that area as well, or the actual homestead where these people were actually killed by those Indians. So there could have been a lot of other places that if we would have spent more time on and kind of like divided our time equally, we could have seen a lot more locations and probably got a lot more evidence.
It seems that the people that owned it, the mother and her son, seemed to want to protect the spirits more than any other location we've ever been to, I think. Where they came in and had us in that whatever that thing is with the roof on it with all the sides open.
Right.
Where we had central set up.
Like an enclosure, yeah.
Yeah. And she came in there and talked, and everybody's ready to be busting out of there. And it was like, and she just kept on talking.
Yeah. I hated to be rude, but I had come there really to investigate rather than to listen to, what happened there in the past. I think we had a pretty much really well thought out tour by her son that took us through there and really gave us a lot of history on the location. So I really wanted to, there was always that threat of rain coming in, and we were hoping it didn't, and it actually didn't. So that was kind of cool. It bypassed us. But I was really antsing to get out and to do more investigating. And, we just didn't do as much as I actually wanted. I wanted to do a lot more there. So that might be something we might want to consider going back to maybe sometime in the future. But with so many places on our, the GRS wish list here, I just got off the phone last night. My good friend Richard Sennett from California, who has been a longtime friend. I first met him when he did a People magazine article back in 1980. Teaches courses out there. He's an investigator. His wife is a psychic. Her name is Debbie. And he had his own, I guess you might call it kind of like a Facebook Live. It was like a Facebook page that you can actually just kind of click on people to kind of join in. And it was 3 or 4 people. We talked for about a half an hour. And he wants us to come out there because, he can show us La Purisma, some of these old Spanish missions that are out there that are haunted. He has permission to go on. Wow. The Queen Mary, obviously, the Whaley House, the Preston Castle. Then, of course, Nicole Strickland, our California state coordinator, knows a ton of other places. We could literally go out there and spend 3 or 4 or 5 days out there and just hit the high points of those locations. We had talked about, doing something, with the Buddy Holly crash site in Clear Lake, Iowa, possibly that No Ping Sanitarium in Duluth, Minnesota,
right.
And even doing something in the Deep South. I've gotten an invitation from Robert Honeycutt, who is the founder and lead investigator of the Georgia Ghost Group out there, who invited us to come out there to investigate with him and his team out there in Georgia. And there's a lot of crazy stuff happening out there in Georgia and South Carolina that I'd love to get out to do as well. I'd love to go back and do something at the Bell Witch Cave. I'd love to do something go back to Stones River Battlefield and maybe this time meet with that police officer and try to get it set up. Unfortunately, with the COVID and the rioting, all this kind of threw a damper on that. But even going into and investigating the Hales Bar Marina, which is not that far from Old South, right. As you know. I think it was $20 or $25 for an all-night investigation, or $40, something very, most people can afford something like that. And I think it was a great place. We got some interesting stuff, just what we went through, and this was in broad daylight, as you know. So, there's a lot of places that I'd like to go. I'd like to, head over to the East Coast and be able to join up with Randy Liebeck a lot more, because he doesn't have a chance to investigate with us. There's places out there in like Salem, Massachusetts, the Lizzie Borden house, places like that are just incredibly haunted. So, yeah, I mean, I know we can only do so many things each year, and I wish we could roll the clock back about 10 years and be about 10 years younger, so we can investigate more places. But
I think we need to make it 20 years back.
Yeah, 20 years. Yeah. And, well, maybe we should just build some time machine, and try to go time a little bit or something.
Now, for everybody that's watching, I'm going to take us back to Mansfield Reformatory, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and we're up in the library, and one of the gentlemen that was sort of the tour guide was giving us a challenge of something to do. Why don't you tell everybody what we had to do?
The idea with the challenge was to walk around in the dark. But the main thing is that when you got done, you can't share any of your experiences with anybody else until everybody has a chance to go through, which is really great because that way you're not expecting something to happen. And literally, as you know, it was pitch dark. It was pretty dark. I mean, as you got closer back to where kind of civilization was, where we started, you could kind of see again. But when you first started, it was, pitch dark, and walked around this big square, sort of, 4 corners, and then came back to, where we started. And
it was the whole East Cell Block, correct?
Yeah, the whole cell block. And then the next person would go through and rinse and repeat until everybody had a chance to go through. I remember, and particularly myself, when I went through, I don't scare easy. I just don't. There's things that have happened to me that have been unexpected, but I don't scare easy. But I had this feeling that I just wanted to run.
And tell everybody that what you had on the outside was just a metal post and a cable.
Right.
That was halfway up, and everything else was wide open.
Right. And that was, I think, 3 or 4 floors up. I mean, that was a pretty good fall. If you fall from there, you're pretty much a goner. So, and the thing was, that was on one side, and the other side were the cell doors, which were wide open. They weren't closed. And I always thought, this was in my mind as I'm going through there. Something's going to reach, there you go. Something's going to reach out and grab you by the shoulder or something. Now, I thought at first maybe, just maybe, this was somebody from the place that was in there to shock the crap out of everybody. But it wasn't, which was good. It was just to kind of face your own fear. And so, when we came back around, I mean, I just got towards that end, that last 30 feet. I wanted to sprint, but I said, well, I don't want to sprint and end up falling over the handrail. So I just made a little bit quicker pace, and I got out of there. A very similar thing was when we were over at Trans-Allegheny, and we were up there with Bob Davies and Kathy and Marge. I don't know if you were, I'm not sure if you were there or not. And the same thing on that the fifth floor, I believe it was. It was completely dark, and the challenge was to walk all the way around this whole upstairs in the dark without a flashlight by yourself. Now, there was only, I think, really 2 people that actually did it by themselves. I think there were a couple of people that actually had to go with another person, which is really not as scary because you got somebody there with you. So I mean, it's kind of like you're trying to face your fear, but also to see what your senses can pick up too as well, without using any equipment. Using your number one piece of equipment, your body, to see what your body, your hearing, your sight, your smell, your feelings as you walk through this location. And I think pretty much everybody had some kind of interesting little anecdotal, experience that they wanted to share at the end.
I know when I came around I was like the second person. And when I came I was going down the first part, it just kept on getting darker and darker and darker, you know, and all I had was a recorder.
Yeah.
And I had it on, and I had footsteps behind me that were following me. And then I had this arm up all the time because that's where the cell doors were open.
Right.
Waiting for somebody to just come out. And I got towards the end, and that's where they had all those special prisoners at the corner down there. And at the time they had to keep them together because they were being picked on.
Right.
I guess they were all gay. And I came around the corner, and that's where I had something just come across the top back of below my butt, but on my leg, and just brushed by me like that. And I sort of did a quick 3 or 4 steps, and it didn't follow me. So I probably said 3 prayers.
Right. Yeah.
Right there before I got down to the next turn, and knew that was on your home straightaway, you know. But it was amazing.
That building is by far one of the most haunted prisons that I've ever been into. We had so many interesting things that happened to us. We caught that shadow figure in the men's toilet room during our first experience there in 2009, which was actually used on the show Ghost Lab later on with the Kling brothers.
That was a shower room, right?
The communal shower room, right. Mm-hmm. We had stuff that happened just before we got in the shower room. We actually heard footsteps and doors slamming in front of us, above us, actually. And we knew for a fact that we were the only ones in that cell block. And the reason I know that is because I watched the other group walk out. So I knew that it was just me, Jim Graycheck, and I think one other person that was with us. And we were hearing all kind of stuff. So as we came back, there's an area they call the bullpen, which is really kind of like where you set up your gear. They have tables, they have electric lights, they have plug-ins, there's the washrooms there. That's where they fed us the pizza, which is really kind of cool and everything there. As I was coming back from the bullpen, towards the bullpen I think that was out of the East Cell block, I saw with my own eyes, and Jim saw a shadow figure on that second floor. Wow. And, I didn't hesitate. I started sprinting in that direction immediately. And we got there, and I had a trap cam, this big giant, Moultrie trap cam, held it as still as I possibly can, and snapped the picture. I must have slightly moved it just very slightly. When I was able to take that SD card out of there later and look at it, it was a little bit blurred, but right where I saw that, there was a dark shadow figure standing right there. Now, I didn't know this at the time, because the first time we were there, it seemed like every time we went there, we learned something different. Sometimes certain guides only told certain stories. I don't know why. We always wanted to hear everything. But the second time we were there, I was able to find out that was the exact location where that man had doused himself with the lighter fluid and set himself on fire. And literally, by the time they got him extinguished, they were literally peeling him off the floor. That's how bad it was. And it was right there where I saw that shadow figure. Because later on, I went back to that same location, and I got the cell number, and it matched. So
we're like two. That was right towards the end of that tier, if I'm not mistaken. Like the second one in. The second tier, maybe about 2 or 3, maybe something like that. 2 or 3, maybe 4 at the most cells from the bullpen. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we caught strange light anomalies, and what I mean not by light anomalies, not what you see on TV, that are definitely orbs that are caused by dust and bugs and whatever. These were anomalies on the walls that seemed to move when nobody else moved. And we took a number of these down in Solitary, and that's when Rosemary was down there. Rosemary was using a mini box, one of her many mini boxes. I mean, she had, I don't know, 10 or 20 different mini boxes, Frank's boxes, Joe's boxes, and that's when we got those two very strange, or actually three very strange EVPs that came through that we all heard. And the first one said, "You got the ghost." The second one said, "Needs therapy." And the last one said, "Needs medical care." Excuse me, I'm in the wrong one. I'm talking about Waverly. Excuse me, my mind's going too. I'm kind of going back and forth. But I mean, that kind of gives you an example of just, how you can confuse places if you've been to a lot of places like me. So that was actually Waverly Hills, but that was another great place too. Actually, no, what was that? I'm losing it. That was Mansfield. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it had to be Mansfield.
Down in Solitary. We had a very similar thing happen to us at Waverly. That Rosemary was also at too, so that's maybe why I'm confusing it, because we actually were able to investigate a lot of neat places with Rosemary throughout the years. I wanted to have her join us when we went to Hillview Manor. She had told me about that place for years. We went there with Stan, myself, Randy Liebeck. It was a very small group, and then I think one or two others, I believe, not from our group, from somebody else. But yeah, there are a lot of very neat places out there to investigate. And when I first started doing this, I mean, it wasn't like you had to really pay to get in there. It was more like kind of a donation, type thing. And a lot of these big name places, and I won't mention who they are, I don't want to insult anybody, but they started to charge people. And now everybody charges people to get in. And, I don't mind paying for it as long as it's going towards historical preservation of that area and not going into somebody's back pocket.
Julie just sent a picture, supposedly, and I don't see Nicholas up there, so I don't know how the heck we're going to be able to do that part.
Okay.
I hate to say it, but let me see what it says. Did anyone with you at Waverly smell something here? Let me post this one. You see it?
Yeah. It's very sweet in the room where the lady was locked in and died. Trying to remember where that place would have been at. That doesn't seem to really ring a bell. Again, like I say, I mean, we did Waverly back in 2007, so that's like 13 years ago. First time I was there, I was with Keith Age with the Louisville Ghost Hunters. We did a conference out there I spoke at, and then he allowed us afterwards to spend wherever we wanted the entire night, and we ended up on the fourth floor, which is one of the most haunted floors. I'm not exactly sure where they kept the meds. I kind of seem to remember.
It says here the lady used to follow the nurses around, and the head nurse had her locked in this room, and they forgot her for 3 days.
I seem to remember that, but kind of vaguely. Where we spent most of our time in Waverly was on the third floor, which was considered the children's floor. They had a lot of balls and dolls and toy trucks and things of that nature. That's where we got that strange picture when we were there with Rosemary, and she was using a mini box, and we had a toy truck on the ground, and we said, can you move that toy truck? And something came through the mini box that said, it's hard. So I said, if it's hard, so can you bring some of your friends? I then turned around down a corridor past where the breezeway would have been, where they used to bring the people out to get the fresh air. and there was nobody down there, and I shot a trap cam picture down there, and that's why I got those 4 or 5 little shadow figures coming to move that truck. And that place we spent some time at, the 4th floor, obviously room 502 was supposedly where the nun hung herself up there, who was pregnant. And there was one operating room I think we spent some time in as well. We did some experiments down the corridors. I know people, first time I was there, like I said, was during a conference for Keith Age. I'd never been there before. And they had always said, if you look down those corridors, I mean, you'll see shadows moving around. And I think a lot of it, maybe not all of it, but I think a lot of it is tricks of the eye, because it's so dark and you got the light and the dark and you're kind of coming together and you're kind of almost straining to see something, and then you see something.
Here's the picture. They're putting it up here.
Okay.
Nicholas found it. Thanks, Nick.
All right. That's room 502, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I didn't know that she was locked in there. I knew the story about the nurse that was pregnant that apparently hung herself near room 502 up on the 5th floor. So that there are many stories, obviously, in that location. I remember that place like right off the roof, that we had did some experiments in there with some night vision goggles and everything. They were looking down the hallway because people were seeing these shadow figures. And I said, well, I got these infrared binoculars. Let me just go down and, just look through these infrared binoculars. And they were seeing shadows and I wasn't seeing anything. So I thought at least at that point, it was a trick of the eye. Not saying that everybody's, encounters are tricks of that's I believe is the solarium, where we did some experiments. This is where to the right is where individual rooms used to be, and then they would pull the patients out there in that long corridor here to get some sunlight. Right. That's one of they said sunlight and fresh air was the best thing you could have for tuberculosis.
Okay, Julie O'Mara Webster is the one that shared these pictures.
Oh, thank you.
She had those. Somehow it was supposed to be Facebook, but Nicholas found them somehow.
Okay.
Pulled a rabbit out of his head.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick. So I think it's like 8:09. If we want to try to start to wrap this up and then go ahead and say down the road again, if you would love to come back, I'd love to have you and see how the courses are going and that kind of thing is happening. So any final comments that anybody's got to make, you can make them now. We're going to get ready to shut down.
Or if anybody has a quick question they want to ask real quick.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that, like I say, there are so many new places that are on the agenda for next year that I hope to be able to put together. If we can put together that no ping on one day, the next day go out to the Buddy Holly crash site, and then maybe end that night over at the Velixa Axe House. That would be a nice threesome for a weekend.
That's an awful long way from up at No Ping all the way down to the Axe House, isn't it?
Well, I know when you go to Duluth, Minnesota, you're going kind of north and west and kind of more west. That's probably the longest stretch. When I was Googling from No Ping down to Clear Lake, Iowa, it's almost a straight drop, straight south.
Right, 35.
Yeah, and then it's not very far from, I believe, not very far. It could be farther than I actually thought, but it's not very far from there to the Velixa Axe House. And like I say, if we do, the Buddy Holly crash site probably during the day and then do the Velixa Axe House at night, we could probably squeeze in 3 investigations for that day. And that's a place that hopefully we will be able to do. I've been in contact still with this producer, David Harvey from Peninsula Films, the guy who put together that very nice documentary that people have been seeing called The World's Most Unexplained, that I was on there twice for the Flight 191 and the Ghost of the White House. He is still coming up with this idea of doing these celebrity ghost voices where celebrities have died. And that would be able to get some of our team involved with that investigations as well, hopefully. And I have already given them a lot of interesting places that we can start. And number one on the list is the Buddy Holly crash site. I have since come up with another great one that we could possibly do if we go down to the Deep South. It's in Mississippi. It's where the band Leonard Skinner died at their crash site.
Oh, the crash site, when they left in the airplane.
Skinner. And if you remember the story about that very quickly, when their album came out, Street Survivors, it was a picture of them, and behind them engulfed in flames. You remember that? The album cover? I don't know if a lot of people remember that. And, of course, obviously one of the songs in it was Ooh, That Smell. I think we're talking about marijuana, but if you think about people burning to death, that would make a pretty bad smell too. And it's could you put that up there one more time, Greg? I was talking here.
That's that question. There's your spot.
Yeah. Right next to the toilet room, as you go down to the eastern cell block, you go past the toilet room on the left. And they call it the toilet room because literally it's just filled floor to ceiling with toilets and sinks. I don't know why. It's just like spare parts. And then at the very end, underneath one of these stairways that go up to the next floor, is that communal shower. And what we were having happen to us that evening is that our infrared cameras, they totally dark, they will send out a beam of infrared light to focus on something, especially if you got it on autofocus. It's automatic focus instead of manual. And something kept making it go in and out of focus. So I thought when something is coming in between the wall and the camera that we can't see, that's causing it to go in and out of focus. Jim Graysick was there, and he snapped a trap cam picture of where I thought I saw it. And I was looking through the viewfinder, and I said, I think I just saw a shadow image. And if you want to see that, go to Mansfield 2009. You'll actually see that entire video. And what later on, how Ghost Lab enhanced that video, which is really amazing. The shadow was on the outside of the infrared illumination, so it wasn't caused by a shadow at all, or anybody in creating a shadow. And then a subsequent follow-up picture, it wasn't there. And that was right over there. And we went back there, year after year, never caught anything similar like that again.
Wow.
You just got to be there at the right place at the right time sometimes.
Okay. Do you want to give people any information about your pages and everything else?
Yeah, sure. I mean, people can go to easiest way to find me is at my website, ghostresearch.org, www.ghostresearch.org. You can also find me on several Facebook pages. I have my own timeline page. I have the Ghost Research Society page, the Ghost Research Society press page for the books, and also the excursions into the unknown tours that I do. I also can be, if you just want to send me an email, the email is very simple. It's just Dale@ghostresearch.org. Just add Dale in front of that, ghostresearch.org, and get emails from people. I have a Twitter account, which I'm never hardly on. I prefer, Facebook a little bit better. It's an easier platform, in my opinion. You're not limited by so many characters as you are in Twitter to make your thing known. But on the website, you can find information about our group. If you're interested in joining our group, we're always looking for people to join. You can find information about the books that I've written. I've written 6 books on the subject, with the possibility of still writing 2 more. I'm looking into that. I have just found out, I didn't know this until recently, that you can actually publish books through Amazon. And Amazon, if you send them the the cover and your inside. They will do everything else, and they will publish that book for you. So I may be writing 2 more books. We'll see how that goes.
Okay, and I want to say to everybody out there, thank you very much for all your comments and everything, and we will have Dale back. If you guys could take a moment tonight or tomorrow to go and subscribe to our paranormal page on YouTube, that would be great. And we've got people here all the way from down in Georgia, Dale, so that's really great. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure once again to have you on. And they're posting the thing about subscribing to the YouTube channel now.
There you go.
And we will see you at the meeting a week from now or 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Okay. Well, have a good day. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for all those. I didn't have a chance to look over there who was asking what, but I do appreciate all the comments and all the positive feedback on the site there.
Okay, Dale. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Everybody, thanks again for everything, and we will see you next week. You guys take it easy.